Ethan, maybe next time wear something that doesn't scream discount rack. William's voice echoed across the penthouse ballroom, loud enough for half the guests to hear. Laughter followed like a synchronized orchestra of cruelty. The spotlight hanging from the crystal chandelier glinted off Ethan's plain gray suit, borrowed, slightly wrinkled, and completely out of place in this sea of bespoke tuxedos and satin gowns. He stood near the edge of the open bar, gripping a glass of untouched sparkling water like it was a lifeline. Everywhere he looked, judgment. Women whispered behind designer fans, men exchanged smug glances. His mother-in-law, seated near the Sinclair board members, didn't bother to hide her sigh of embarrassment. Even the staff looked more polished than he did. Ethan forced a tight-lipped smile. He was used to it by now. The Sinclair family's trophy husband was a running joke in every business circle from Wall Street to Rodeo Drive. A man who married the Ice Queen billionaire for money and fame, and offered nothing else. He could have ignored it like he always did. Could have just slipped away into the background. But tonight was different. Tonight, something shifted. I told Marissa she could do better, William continued with a smirk, swirling his whiskey. But I guess every empire has its charity cases. Ethan didn't look at him. Instead, he looked at her. Marissa Sinclair stood across the room like a sculpted statue of dominance in a jet-black gown. Her gaze was locked on the stage ahead, face unreadable, shoulders square, glass of wine untouched. Cold. Unshaken. Silent. But suddenly, a voice, sharp, clear, and completely in Ethan's head, pierced through the noise. God, William is insufferable. Why did I even let him attend? Ethan blinked. The glass nearly slipped from his hand. He scanned the room. No one was speaking. No one was even looking at him now. Don't react. Keep your posture. Ethan looks like he's going to disappear through the floor. Damn it, why does that hurt to see? His heart skipped. He looked back at Marissa. Still the same. Chin raised. Lips sealed. Eyes forward. She hadn't moved. She hadn't said a word. But her voice, it was hers. That same cool, clipped tone he'd heard in private when she handed him their marriage contract like it was a press release. Yet this voice, it was real. It was inside. He straightened slowly. William hadn't noticed. I mean, come on, he chuckled, gesturing toward Ethan. The only thing he brought to this marriage was hair product and a decent jawline. More chuckles. Even the event photographer snapped a picture, like this was part of the entertainment. Ethan looked directly at Marissa now. And she blinked. Her jaw twitched. Don't look at me like that. Ugh. He's actually hurt. William, you jackal. Just because he doesn't fight back doesn't mean you can tear him apart in front of everyone. Ethan's pulse picked up. It was her. He wasn't crazy. For the first time in a long time, he smiled, not politely, not with effort, but because something inside him stirred. A new rule had been written. And the game had just changed. A year ago, Ethan's life had been defined by ramen cups, sleepless nights, and a bank account that flatlined more often than a dying patient's heartbeat. His startup, a tutoring app for underserved students, burned through its seed funding in 6 months and imploded in 9. He'd tried. God, he tried. But trying didn't pay off when you were 28, broke, and your father was on a ventilator with hospital bills climbing like an avalanche. Then came the offer. It wasn't a job. It wasn't even a loan. It was a contract. Delivered by a man in a suit so sharp it looked like it could cut diamonds. The Sinclair family, the man had said, sliding a crisp folder across the cafe table, has taken an interest in your astrological chart. Ethan thought it was a scam. Until he flipped to the last page and saw the zeros. $10 million in total compensation. Medical expenses fully covered. No physical contact. No romantic expectations. Marriage in name only, lasting 2 years. I don't understand, Ethan had said. Why me? The lawyer smiled tightly. Miss Sinclair's last 3 engagements ended, catastrophically. Her family believes your grounded energy and complete lack of ambition make you ideal for balance. So that was how he became a glorified human lucky charm. Their first meeting was at the law firm's penthouse office. Marissa walked in wearing a black power suit tailored to perfection, her sleek bun never moving as she surveyed the room like a hawk assessing prey. Her voice was a controlled weapon. No touching. No interviews. No interference in my business. Ethan, in his faded hoodie and old sneakers, had nodded dumbly. Got it. Her gaze lingered on him for exactly 2 seconds. And you'll answer to Mr. Sinclair in public. Huh. He's not completely hideous. Ethan's head snapped up. But she hadn't spoken. She was already halfway out the door. The second meeting was worse. City Hall. She stood beneath the courthouse arch, clad in a charcoal pantsuit and glossy heels, flanked by 2 assistants and a bored-looking judge. He showed up in a clean white dress shirt and the only pair of decent pants he owned. He'd missed a belt loop. They didn't exchange vows. They didn't even exchange words. Just signatures. And silence. This is fine. 2 years will go by quickly. I've had root canals more emotionally involved than this. Still nothing spoken. But Ethan felt the words crawl under his skin like heat. His hands had trembled when he signed. He'd told himself it was nerves. The third meeting was unforgettable. Family dinner. The Sinclair mansion could have been mistaken for a luxury resort. A marble staircase curved like a swan's neck across the foyer, chandeliers dripped crystal like frozen rain, and the dining room smelled faintly of sandalwood and quiet judgment. He sat at one end of a silk-draped table long enough to seat 20. In front of him, lobster, caviar, duck confit. Dishes he'd only ever seen on cooking shows. Next to him sat Marissa, perfectly poised, unreadable behind a glass of vintage red. Across from him was Mrs. Sinclair, who regarded Ethan like she'd found a stain on her couture. So, Ethan, she said, her smile sharper than her diamond earrings, how does it feel to live off my daughter's accomplishments? Forks paused midair. Silence spread like wildfire. Ethan gave a soft laugh, trying not to choke on his bite of lobster. I guess I'm adjusting. She scoffed. Well, don't adjust too much. We're a legacy family, not a retirement home. I told her not to start. Why does she always do this? The voice came again, cool, feminine, inside his mind. Marissa hadn't moved. Hadn't spoken. Why does he look so sad? It's just dinner. Get through it, Ava. Don't look at him. If you look at him, it'll show. Her wine glass trembled a fraction. Ethan watched her from the corner of his eye. The words weren't spoken. But they were hers. That night, he lay awake for hours staring at the ceiling of his absurdly lavish guest room, wondering if he was going insane or if he had just unlocked the strangest clause of their contract marriage. The next morning, he confirmed it. She walked into the kitchen, already dressed for the office, tailored black blouse, fitted slacks, hair in a twist so clean it looked sculpted. He sat in a t-shirt, sipping coffee he'd brewed himself, barefoot in their sprawling penthouse. Morning, he greeted. She blinked. You're awake early. His voice is too smooth in the morning. I hate that it's nice. Yup. Definitely real. He smirked behind his cup. I figured I'd make myself useful. She opened the fridge and frowned. There's bacon. Ugh. I shouldn't. But also, why does it smell so good? Want some? He asked casually. Her head whipped around. No. Thank you. But her hand hovered above the toast longer than necessary. Later that week, he accompanied her to a charity gala. William was there. So was Eileen. The room buzzed with speculation about the contract groom. As cameras flashed and whispers circled, Ethan stood dutifully beside her in a tailored suit Marissa had ordered delivered. She didn't touch him. Didn't even look at him. But the moment Eileen looped arms with William and threw a jab about kept boys, Ethan heard it. If I deck her with my clutch, I wonder how many witnesses I'd need to bribe. Ethan smiled. The real Marissa was buried beneath 10 layers of cold, hard steel. But now he had the key. And he was going to enjoy unlocking every single door. The Sinclair Foundation's Winter Gala was the kind of event that made magazine covers and crashed hashtags. $1,000 ticket, a guest list packed with billionaires, and a ballroom so drenched in opulence it made Versailles look like an Airbnb. Ethan adjusted his cufflinks, real silver, not his usual dollar store knockoffs, and followed a step behind Marissa as they entered the venue. Cameras clicked. Conversations paused. Tonight's contract role? Trophy husband. Silent, photogenic, unthreatening. Marissa was exquisite. Floor-length sapphire gown, slit at the thigh, paired with diamond drop earrings and a choker that probably cost more than Ethan's childhood home. Her face was unreadable, her posture unshakable. Until William appeared. He slid into their path like a shark gliding through water. Tall, too clean, and smug enough to power the grid. Well, he said with a smirk, if it isn't Marissa Sinclair and her favorite accessory. Ethan smiled politely. William. Marissa's expression didn't shift. Did you need something? William ignored her, eyes locked on Ethan. Tell me, do you polish her shoes in the morning, or is that outsourced too? A few board members nearby chuckled behind flutes of champagne. Ethan tilted his head, unfazed. Neither. I'm more of a breakfast guy. Eggs, toast, making CEOs late to board meetings. Marissa blinked. William raised a brow. Cute. You're developing a personality. God, I should have made him stay home tonight. William is such a snake. Ethan's mouth twitched. And you're developing a receding hairline. We all have our battles. William's smile thinned. Still hiding behind your wife's name, I see. Marissa's hand tensed slightly against her clutch. Her face remained neutral. Say one more thing, William. I dare you. If you weren't on the board, I'd break this champagne flute over your head. Ethan gave her a side glance. Careful, he whispered with a smirk, someone might hear you plotting murder. She froze. What? She asked, voice low. Her eyes narrowed a fraction. What did you just say? Nothing, Ethan said innocently. Just admiring the decor. Very homicidal. She turned away sharply. He's messing with me. Why does it sound like he's replying to my thoughts? They made their way to their table, and the tension followed like perfume. Later that evening, Ethan stepped away to the bar. William followed. You're enjoying this, aren't you? William said. I don't hate it. Ethan took a sip of his drink. William leaned in. You think because she let you wear her last name that you're anything more than a placeholder? Ethan didn't blink. And yet here you are, chasing a placeholder's shadow. That must sting. William's eyes flared. You'll never be her equal. Why is he talking to William alone? What if something happens? Ethan didn't turn around, but he smiled at the sound of her panic. Back at the table, Marissa sat stiffly, legs crossed, one perfectly manicured finger tapping the armrest. Where is he? He's been gone too long. What if William says something? What if he... Miss me? Ethan appeared beside her chair, smug grin firmly in place. Marissa jumped slightly. You. Bathroom line was long. She narrowed her eyes. You were at the bar. He raised an eyebrow. Were you watching me? Her lips parted, then closed again. No. Of course not. I was just monitoring the room. He looked too comfortable. That smile. Why did he look so relaxed around William? Ethan leaned closer. I'm starting to think you care. Her breath hitched. Please, she said coolly. Don't flatter yourself. I care way too much. This is not part of the plan. Why does he look so smug? They sat in silence as the MC took the stage. Ethan casually leaned toward her again. You're clenching your jaw. That means you're worried. Am I in trouble? She inhaled slowly. Stop it. Stop what? You know exactly what. He tapped his glass with hers. You're cute when you're cornered. Her hand trembled slightly. He's dangerous. Not because he's powerful. Because he sees me. Actually sees me. As the auction began, William raised a hand for the first item, an exclusive week-long villa retreat in Lake Como. Marissa didn't bid. Neither did Ethan. But when the MC joked, perhaps Miss Sinclair will bid if we throw in a trophy polishing kit, the crowd laughed. Ethan stood. Took the mic. My wife doesn't need a trophy kit, he said calmly, she keeps her standards too high for anything plastic. Silence. Then scattered claps. Marissa stared up at him, stunned. He did that, for me? He returned to his seat, leaned close, and whispered, now we're even. She blinked. Even for what? Your mom's birthday dinner. You didn't let her call me a burden. Thought I'd return the favor. Her lips parted. Why is my chest tight? I hate this. I hate how he gets under my skin. Your ears are red, Ethan said quietly. I like it. Shut up, she whispered. Don't say that. Say something else. Anything else. But Ethan just smirked and sipped his drink. The night ended with photos, interviews, and more whispers. But something had shifted. No one saw Ethan as an accessory anymore. And Marissa couldn't look at him without hearing her own thoughts echoed back at her. And wondering, with growing dread, could he really hear her? Marissa liked mornings quiet. 1 cup of black coffee, 5 pages of market forecasts, and complete silence before the calls began. Which made Ethan's humming feel like sandpaper against glass. He was at the stove in gray sweatpants and a plain white t-shirt, flipping pancakes like he'd done it professionally. The kitchen smelled like melted butter and sugar, rich and warm, completely at odds with the steel and marble minimalism of the penthouse. She cleared her throat. Do you intend to hum through the entire morning? Ethan glanced over his shoulder, grin lazy. Depends. You planning to stop glaring at me like I'm committing a felony? Marissa said nothing. He looks way too comfortable. And why does his shirt fit that well? He slid a plate in front of her. A stack of pancakes, strawberries on the side, syrup already warmed. She stared at it. I didn't ask for this. You didn't have to. He remembered. I told him once. Strawberries on the side because syrup makes them soggy. She picked up her fork and took a small bite. Silence stretched. Ethan sat across from her, sipping orange juice. No teasing. No games. Just quiet. And that was worse. Why isn't he saying anything? Did I do something? He always makes jokes. Is he upset? She set her fork down. Did something happen? Ethan raised an eyebrow. Like what? You're being calm. He tilted his head. You say that like it's a crime. She stared at him, waiting for his usual smirk. It didn't come. I figured you needed the silence, he said finally. I've been told I can be distracting. I didn't mean it like that. She picked her fork up again. The pancakes are adequate. That's the nicest thing you've said to me in weeks, he said, and this time the smile returned, soft and honest. He's not flirting. He's just here. Existing. And I hate how nice that feels. Later that afternoon, they shared a car ride to a board event. Marissa sat rigid, tablet in hand, eye scanning numbers. Ethan sat beside her, scrolling idly through his phone. At one point, she glanced up and caught a glimpse of his screen. Photos. Old ones. A younger Ethan, in a hoodie, holding a laptop. A dog in the background. A girl with her head on his shoulder. She looked away quickly. Ex? Probably. She looks comfortable. She looks like she knew his laugh. Ethan noticed the shift in her posture. That was Luna, he said. Marissa didn't look at him. Your ex? My sister's dog. Why do I feel relieved? He turned to look at her. Jealous? I'm not interested in your past. But you were looking. She crossed her legs. Don't be ridiculous. He leaned closer. You know, you don't have to always be this sharp. I'm not trying to cut you. She faltered. Don't say things like that. You don't get to read me that easily. He leaned back, letting the silence stretch. William used to say the same thing, she said suddenly, voice quiet. That I was too guarded. Too difficult to love. Ethan looked at her. And you believed him? She didn't answer. He watched the city pass outside the window. Sounds like he never bothered to earn his way in. She turned to him, surprised. I mean, he added, you don't build walls unless someone taught you how to fall. Why does he get it? The event was dull. Endless greetings, handshakes, polite laughter. Marissa handled it effortlessly. Ethan stood beside her, smiling where needed, nodding when expected. Afterward, they returned home late. Marissa headed straight to her office. Ethan, instead of disappearing into his room, knocked softly on her door. She looked up, surprised. He held up a small tray. Tea. A single chocolate truffle. For the Queen of Quarterly Reports, he said. She blinked. You're not supposed to be in here. You didn't lock the door. She hesitated. If I let him stay, it'll feel like something else. Like I want him here. I'll go, he said, reading her silence. He set the tray on the desk. But before he turned to leave, her voice, barely audible, stopped him. Wait. He turned. She looked at the tray. You remembered the truffle. You picked it off my plate once. She stared at him. Why do I remember that? Why do I remember the way he smiled when I did it? Good night, Marissa, he said softly. She didn't respond. But she didn't stop him the next night when he brought her dinner. Or the night after, when he sat on the floor of her office reading while she worked. Every silence started feeling less empty. And that terrified her. You're just used to him. That's all. You're not attached. But when she walked past his room one evening and heard him laughing at something on his screen, a strange ache bloomed in her chest. She stood there for a moment. Listening. Then walked away quickly before she did something foolish. Like Knox. I like to stay. The boardroom at Sinclair Tower was a cathedral of glass and pressure. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline like a warning, don't fall. Inside, the executives of the Sinclair Group sat in polished leather chairs, perfectly manicured fingers tapping on tablets, murmuring under breath. And at the center of it all, William leaned back with his ankle resting on his knee like he already owned the room. Marissa stood at the head of the table, spine straight, voice even. The Pacific merger proposal is under review. Final approval must pass through my desk. William gave a lazy smile. Of course, Marissa. But don't you think your domestic arrangements are making some people nervous? Ethan sat beside her. He wasn't supposed to be in this meeting, technically. But William had insisted. For transparency, he'd said. Which everyone knew meant humiliation. William tapped on his tablet, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. It's a multi-billion-dollar merger. Investors want confidence. Not soft distractions. Ethan didn't move. Marissa's hands were clasped tightly in front of her. My marriage has no bearing on company performance. William raised a brow. Then you wouldn't mind if we reviewed your husband's qualifications? The projector flickered on. A slide, Ethan Hayes, background summary. Photos. His failed startup. Bankruptcy filings. His father's medical debt. Screenshots from gossip blogs. A brutal, invasive audit of everything Ethan had tried to bury. Murmurs rose like a storm around the table. Ethan felt the shame like a weight on his chest. But he didn't flinch. Because above the noise, one voice rang clear. He knew. He knew this might happen. I should have shut this down. Why didn't I protect him? He turned his head slowly. Marissa's eyes were cold, her expression unreadable. But inside? She was screaming. William, you snake. I'll bury you. Don't you dare look at Ethan like that. Ethan stood. May I? He asked softly. Marissa's jaw tensed. Ethan. But he was already walking toward the screen. William leaned back smugly. Go ahead, say something inspiring. We all love a comeback story. Ethan turned to the room. Calm. Measured. Voice steady. My name is Ethan Hayes. I ran a startup that failed. I accumulated debt. I took a contract marriage to save my father's life. And every person in this room would have done the same if they loved someone enough. Silence. He let it settle. My company failed because we aimed too high with too little. But I built a team of brilliant engineers, marketers, and analysts. And I've kept in touch with every one of them. You can laugh at my resume. He looked straight at William. But I know how to build. And I've been watching you tear things down. William's smile vanished. Ethan stepped aside, pulled out his tablet, and connected it to the projector. A new presentation appeared. Shadow deals, confidential portfolio leaks from Pacific Holdings. Gasps around the room. William went pale. These, Ethan said, are leaked procurement trails linked to shell companies William set up to overprice vendor contracts. The numbers don't lie. Marissa's head snapped toward him. What, how did he get this? Did he? Wait. She remembered now. The late nights. The phone calls. The small smirk when he said, just some old friends from my app days. He used his network. He's not just protecting himself. He's protecting us. William stood abruptly. You little, this is ridiculous. These could be fake. Ethan smiled. Then you won't mind if the board investigates them. I've already scheduled a private audit. The files were shared last night. Marissa couldn't stop staring at him. He didn't tell me. He didn't ask permission. He just handled it. The board director cleared his throat. Miss Sinclair. We'd like a closed-door review of these documents. Marissa didn't look away from Ethan. Of course. He didn't just flip the narrative. He owned it. Ethan, you beautiful, reckless idiot. Outside the boardroom, Marissa caught his arm. You planned this? He looked at her with a soft shrug. I figured William would try something. Thought I'd prepare. You used your own contacts? Ex-developers. My old CTO's in cybersecurity now. She stared at him. This whole time, he's been watching out for me. For the company. Not for the paycheck. For me. You didn't tell me. I didn't want to overstep, he said, voice quieter now. You made the rules. Her eyes searched his face. Break the rules. Please. Just this once. She stepped back, straightened her jacket. Come to my office. Now. He followed her in silence. Once the door shut, she rounded on him. You embarrassed a board member. Technically, I exposed fraud. You used blackmail. Strategic evidence. Her arms were crossed. You're unbelievable. Ethan smiled. You're impressed. She glared. Don't push your luck. But she turned away quickly. Too quickly. He's too calm. Too handsome. Too dangerous to the walls I built. You're welcome, he said softly. She paused. Then, voice cracking just slightly, thank you. He didn't answer. Just left the office, letting her sit with it. Letting her wonder what the hell had changed. Letting her feel the shift. Because now, the whole company had seen it. Ethan wasn't a trophy. He was a threat. The room smelled of tension and too much cologne. It was the final merger negotiation with the Pacific Group, a multi-billion-dollar deal that could redefine the Sinclair legacy. The entire Sinclair executive team was present, plus 3 representatives from Pacific. And William. Of course. Eileen, seated beside him, wore a crimson dress that screamed confidence and manipulation. She flipped through her presentation slides with the air of someone who knew she was about to win. Marissa sat at the head of the table, a portrait of icy perfection. Her suit was pristine white today, clean, sharp, untouchable. Ethan sat 2 seats down, present only as a silent observer. He hadn't said a word since he entered. But his mind was racing. William had maneuvered behind the scenes and positioned Eileen to present a compromise model to Pacific. One that would bypass Marissa's veto power. One she hadn't seen until this morning. One that gutted Sinclair's control of their own patented energy tech. If it passed, Sinclair would lose the one thing that made it untouchable in global markets. And it was Eileen's idea. Ethan glanced at Marissa. Her posture was perfect. But her hand trembled slightly beneath the table. Her fingers clenched a pen so tightly the cap cracked. They'd boxed me in. Even if I reject it, the board might side with them. If I speak now, I look paranoid. If I stay silent, I lose everything. Ethan's jaw tightened. William gestured to Eileen. We believe this adjustment ensures long-term growth while keeping Pacific in a leadership role. The Pacific chair nodded. We're very interested in the revised structure. It shows flexibility, which Sinclair has lacked. Eileen smiled sweetly. Marissa, you've always led with strength. But isn't it time to let others help carry the load? Eileen. You snake. You waited until I was surrounded. You were just like William all along. Marissa spoke, voice calm. I'll need to review the clauses in detail before I sign anything. Of course, William said, grinning. Take all the time you want. Though the Pacific reps did mention they're on a tight timeline. The trap was closing. Ethan stood. All eyes turned. Forgive me, he said, buttoning his jacket. But there's one thing we should all clarify before we go further. William raised a brow. This isn't your arena, Ethan. I know, Ethan said smoothly. But it's funny. I was digging through some of my old files, leftovers from my failed startup, remember, and I found something interesting. He clicked his pen. From his tablet, he pulled up a series of encrypted emails. The IP mapping on these messages shows that this proposal wasn't drafted solely by Sinclair's internal team. In fact, part of it was forwarded, weeks ago, to Pacific's own legal department. Before our internal meeting. Before Marissa even saw it. Gasps. Eileen paled. William's smile faded. Marissa sat still. But Ethan could hear her heart. What is he doing? What is this? The email came from Eileen's address, Ethan continued. But interestingly, the IP bounces through William's private server. Now the Pacific team looked uncomfortable. I ran the address through a few database scrapers, Ethan went on. Turns out that same server is connected to at least 3 anonymous shell corporations with partial holdings in Pacific. Conflict of interest, anyone? The Pacific lead cleared his throat. We'll need to investigate that claim before moving forward. William stood, face flushed. This is absurd. He's not even an employee. He's just a husband, Ethan said, turning to him. One who pays attention. He glanced at Marissa. Her eyes met his, and for a fraction of a second, everything fell silent. He protected me. Again. He didn't just save the deal. He saved me. William looked ready to lunge across the table. You've lost it, Sinclair. Letting your lapdog run your meetings? Ethan walked over slowly. Calm. Precise. He reached Marissa's side and rested his hand lightly on the table. Close. But not quite touching. I'm not running anything, he said quietly. But if protecting your wife makes me a lapdog, I'll wear that collar with pride. Silence. Then the room erupted. Eileen tried to explain, but the Pacific lead was already closing his laptop. This meeting is over. Sinclair Group's leadership remains solely with Miss Sinclair. We'll resume next week, pending internal audit clearance. The room emptied fast. Marissa didn't move. Ethan stayed beside her, silent. Then, slowly, she reached across the table and took his hand. No one else was in the room. No audience. No contract clause to perform for. But she held it. Tight. Her eyes shimmered. Don't cry. Don't cry. You're not allowed to feel this much. I had a feeling they'd try something, Ethan said. They got sloppy. I just connected the dots. She squeezed his hand harder. You knew? I heard you thinking, he said softly. I could feel you panicking. I couldn't let you drown in it. How can he say things like that and still smile like that? How can he see every broken part of me and still stay? She looked down at their joined hands. Her thumb brushed over his skin once. You're not what I expected, she whispered. You're exactly what I hoped, he replied. She let out a short, shaky breath. I don't know what this is, she said. It doesn't have to be anything yet, he murmured. But I'm not going anywhere. She closed her eyes. For the first time, the ice queen cracked. And in the warmth spilling through the window, Ethan didn't see a CEO. He saw a woman. Lonely. Strong. Humans. And holding his hand like he was her anchor. The rain came hard and fast that afternoon, tapping against the penthouse windows like impatient fingers. The storm had rolled in without warning, like most endings do. Ethan stood at the entryway, suitcase by his side, wearing the same charcoal coat he had worn the day he married her. It still fit, only now it hung heavier on his shoulders. Marissa stood across the room, arms folded, gaze fixed on a point just beyond him. Her expression was cold, sculpted. Ice Queen, even now. You're leaving, she said flatly. Yeah. His voice was calm. Too calm. The contract's over in a week, technically. But you've already got what you need. Don't ask him to stay. Don't ask. You don't beg for things, Marissa. You never have. I haven't given you final approval on the Pacific merger yet, she said, voice clipped. And there's still the Q3 funding model. We haven't reviewed it together. I know, Ethan said. But you'll be fine. You were always fine. You idiot. You think that's what I meant? He stepped closer and handed her an envelope. His fingers brushed hers for a second longer than they had to. Inside, divorce papers. Signed. You're free, he said. No more performance. No more press photos. No more pancakes. She didn't move. I stayed long enough to protect you, he added. That was all we agreed on, right? Marissa opened her mouth to speak. But nothing came out. Say something. Anything. Don't let him walk. Don't. You've done more than enough, she finally managed. You handled William. Eileen's been terminated. The board respects you. The media sees you differently. You won. He nodded once. So did you. She took a step toward him. Just one. And what about us? He blinked slowly. Was there an us? I hate you. I hate how calm you are. I hate how you're taking every part of me with you. Her voice stayed smooth. So this was the plan? Break the company's enemies. Win the board's favor. Then walk out? I never planned anything, Ethan said. I just showed up. And for a while. I thought maybe you'd ask me to stay. Marissa's nails dug into her palms. I don't ask. I know. He turned to leave. She followed him to the elevator. Watched him press the button. Silence bloomed between them. The doors opened. Then he hesitated. Marissa. She looked up. He reached into his coat pocket and handed her something small. A worn Polaroid. Them. At the charity gala. Her laughing, unaware the photo had even been taken. Him beside her, smiling like a fool. She stared at it. When was this taken? That night you scolded me for eating 3 eclairs, he said, smirking faintly. It was the only time I saw you laugh without controlling it. Her grip tightened around the photo. Damn you. You had to give me something I can't throw away. Ethan stepped into the elevator. Marissa didn't move. Didn't speak. Didn't stop him. But as the doors started to close, his voice cut through the space between them, soft, certain, final. You handpicked me, remember? And then he was gone. Weeks passed. Sinclair Group's stock hit record highs. The board praised her strategy. Pacific signed under her original terms. And Marissa stopped laughing. Stopped sleeping. She buried herself in spreadsheets, acquisition reports, and quarterly forecasts. Every night, she sat at the office desk until sunrise, pretending the silence didn't hurt. Her assistants noticed the difference. Her mother noticed too. But no one asked. No one dared. He said he stayed to protect me. But no one asked him to go. I never told him to go. Every morning, she opened the drawer in her study. And stared at the photo. His smile. Her laugh. Proof that it hadn't all been pretend. The charity ball came again. A year later. Marissa stood alone this time. No husband. No contract. Just legacy. William was gone. Eileen disgraced. Sinclair's empire bigger than ever. She should have felt triumphant. Instead, she felt hollow. Reporters asked where Ethan was. She smiled and deflected. Board members asked if she was dating again. She changed the subject. One of them, a younger VP, tried to flirt. She nodded politely and turned away. And nearly dropped her glass. Because standing across the room, dressed in black, collar open, hair slightly longer than before, was Ethan. Her heart slammed against her ribs. He hadn't seen her yet. He stood talking to someone from the tech sector. Smiling. Confident. And suddenly, she couldn't breathe. What do I say? What if he walks away again? What if he's moved on? What if I ruined it? She stepped toward him. He turned. Their eyes met. A pause. Everything stopped. Then he smiled. Not the polite smile. Her smile. The one that reached his eyes. He walked to her slowly, as if he'd known she'd come. They stopped just a breath apart. Neither spoke. Until Marissa whispered, almost too quiet to hear, I never asked you to stay. I know. But I should have. He studied her face. Do you still need protecting? She shook her head. No. Then what do you need? She swallowed hard. And then said it, finally, softly, truthfully. You. His smile widened just a little. He leaned in, breath brushing her ear. and whispered, "I'm yours." The Ice Queen shattered. And she didn't want to be put back together.